I'm Peter Moore. I'm a writer and an editor and a multi sport athlete living in Colorado. For the purposes of this podcast, you're probably most interested in the fact that I spent 20 years as an editor at Men's Health magazine. So I came in at a time right when men were making a turn to being more concerned about their health and about their emotional health and about their fitness levels. And one idea that kept on coming up time and time again as I was working on this magazine was the idea of body chaos, meaning there are all those things that are militating against your health, how well you feel, how well your relationships are going. And we used to refer to that as the kind of the chaos in men's lives. Whereas at Men's Health Magazine, what we're helping them do is to take control of their lives. And it helped me in my life. It was the best place for me to work in my middle ages. Um, and I'm hoping it'll help you guys too.
So when we talk about body chaos, you talked a little bit about it. And again, we're here with Peter Moore. So excited to have you on. What were some of the stories that you heard from men that surprised you related to this, to body chaos?
You know, I'll start with my own body chaos because it was a pretty dramatic moment for me. Um, so before I went to work for Men's Health, I was an editor of Playboy magazine. I, in fact, was the articles editor of Playboy. It's the number one joke in magazine editing, and I held that title. But what I noticed was that after my second son was born, I started to resemble him. I was kind of cranky. I was kind of chubby. I was kind of at a loss for where I was going in life, in part because I felt a lot of pressure because I suddenly had two sons and was realizing what a long term responsibility that would be. And the one thing I didn't want to do was to go into that 15 pounds overweight and questioning my own health. And that's when, even when I was at Playboy magazine, I had my men's health moment, which was the stark realization of what was happening to me, what was happening to my body, and how I was going to take control of that. And I swear, I sat at my desk one morning at Playboy and I thought, I've got to do something about this. In that very day, I left my office and I went out for a run on the lakefront in Chicago, which is where Playboy's offices were at the time. And I really do feel like I was making my first steps onto what would become a lifelong passion of mine and a very helpful passion, which was how am I going to seize control of my life by the actions that I do? And that was in a very funny way. It led me straight out of the offices of Playboy magazine and into the offices of Men's Health magazine.
Man, that's fascinating. So think about this. What did you see primarily? Like, obviously, I'm sure you're receiving all these queries from different men about articles, and obviously you started seeing things about body chaos. What was the overwhelming theme related to body chaos from your point of view?
Well, there's a time in your life, say 18 to 23 or 24, where your body is functioning at its peak ability. Uh, you're horny, you're fit, you're not gaining weight yet. It seems like you can do anything and you'll survive it, or at least that's the idea you have in mind when you're that young. Whereas, you get over the cusp of the mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, and that's when you start looking around, you're saying, I'm not the same guy that I was. How did I lose that? Where did those abilities go? And can I possibly get them back? And then at the same time in your life, you're looking ahead, maybe to your dad, maybe it's your uncle, maybe it's an older brother who is starting to have some health difficulties. And you project a little bit into the future and think, my goodness, that could be me. And it will be me if I'm not comfortable, if I'm not careful now. So, we used to say that um, men didn't feel comfortable going to the doctor, so they went to Men's Health Magazine instead. And in fact, we were there for them because we, the editors of Men's Health, were going through the same things that they were. So I had a colleague at Men's Health who used to say, I don't have personal problems, I have story ideas. And that's where the story ideas for Men's Health came from, both listening carefully to what the readers were going through in their lives and also just sitting around a table in the office and saying, okay, what symptoms has anyone developed? Both things work as far as an editorial process.
Oh, I love that. That's interesting. I don't have problems. I have story ideas. That's pretty cool. Speaking of that,
Well,
what was in your time there? What were maybe a story or two that were pretty unique to you about this, topic
well,
or related
uh,
to it?
yeah, I mean, I can, not to make this all about me, but I had a pretty dramatic one myself. Um, I was in my early 40s. I'd been at Men's Health probably for a decade. And I was as fit as I'd ever been in my life because I was reading the magazine and embodying the advice that we were giving. Um, I was on vacation in Martha's Vineyard with my family, and I had been planning to do a century ride, 100-mile bike ride in the Pennsylvania countryside that fall. So it was getting to be midsummer. I wanted to start getting in shape for that. So I woke up super early one morning, hopped on my bicycle, and started out on what I thought was going to be a 50-mile ride on Martha's Vineyard. I got about 8 miles into it, and I started to feel this like discomfort in my chest. And I'd never felt that before. I thought, God, that's weird. I thought, oh, I must have exercise induced asthma. The that was the trendy diagnosis of the day. But every time I started accelerating, I would again feel this, this pressure in my chest. Well, like a dope, I didn't go to the hospital right then. I went back home. We finished out our vacation. I went into my boss's office and he asked me, well, how was your trip? And I said, it was great, except for was feeling this discomfort in my chest when I was on my bicycle. His eyes widened. He said, "You are going to the hospital right now, you idiot." And I did, in fact, go right to the hospital. They put me on the EKG machine on a treadmill. And that's when I discovered I had a 99% blockage of my right anterior descending artery in my heart, that area in the heart that's known as the widowmaker. And you know, at that moment, I had this stark moment where I realized that I could have just as easily fallen dead off my bicycle. And, that I would have already had my last moment with my sons. I would have left my wife alone. And no telling what would have gone on from there. But all of a sudden, I had this realization that I wasn't immortal either. And that I had a lot that I had to take care of in my life, a lot that I needed to understand better than I did. And, I'm just fortunate that that bike ride didn't kill me. Um, yeah, about 12 hours after they did the EKG, I had an angioplasty and a stent. Um, I started my turnaround into an even healthier way of living. Um, and, not everybody's men's health moment is going to be as dramatic as that one. But for me, I came to see that not only did I need to learn about the advice, I needed to find a way to integrate it naturally into my own life. Had plenty of motivation. I wanted to see my sons grow. I wanted to spend as many years as possible with my wife. And, that internal motivation in turn helped me learn more, put more into practice. And well, you can see I'm talking to you now. Heart disease did not kill me. Something else will, but that isn't what
Right.
got me.
That's right. I'm curious in your mind, I mean, based off of doing this for so long, what do you think the difference is between how men feel about their body as they age versus women?
You know, I think women are amazing at their ability to, invite their friend out to talk because they're not really, they're not feeling right. They have some questions about their lives. Let's get it all out on the table and sort it out. Whereas, I mean, I'm the youngest of four brothers. I know what happens when the four of us get together. We make fun of each other. We crack a lot of jokes. We do some sports. Maybe we watch sports on TV. And so, like, all these activities that are specifically designed to make sure that you're not talking about anything that's actually important. Um, I feel like I've moved beyond that because I realized that I needed to. But I think a lot of guys are trapped in that sort of insular feeling of I'm nervous about this. I don't want to show my vulnerability by confessing it to a friend. So I'm going to bury it deep and just keep on going forward. And the stats about how often people lie to their doctors are shocking. It's something in the order of 40% of people will come out of the doctor's office relieved that the doctor didn't ask a pointed question about what's going on in one aspect of their health, like because then they wouldn't have to lie to the doctor about it. So, that's true about, worries about, for instance, diseases that run in your family. It certainly is true about, sexual dysfunction, however a guy might be experiencing it. Yeah, mental things, um, phobias, anxiety, depression, all of these things. I feel like guys have been socialized to bury that, not talk about it, deny that that's what's going on because they don't want to seem weak uh, to others, to themselves. So to me, that is one of the big things that hurts guys is that if you can't talk about it, you're not going to solve it. If you don't have that group of friends that's going to support you, whatever you're going through, then you need to find a new group of friends. Um, that's what that's a problem that so many guys have that I personally had, and it was one of the reasons why Men's Health Magazine was created was to help guys deal with that.
That's awesome. It's interesting in my personal training practice, I have a majority of women that I train, but the guys I have, they're different guys. They're more like the guys who are willing to talk about their bodies as they age. They weren't always like that when they started, but in our relationship, they've become very much vulnerable about how they feel about their bodies. A lot of these guys I started with when they were in their late 40s, now they're in their late 50s, and they feel the change. They talk about it pretty regularly. In fact, this morning I had a client, and I met him when he was in his 40s. He's 57 now. He goes, "It's just very different for me now, Darian, like how I feel about my body. Like a lot of things feel different." And I like that he could actually talk to me about that. Is that what maybe when people would write into you and stuff, would they talk about this? Was that kind of starting to really, you saw more of that in your time as
I
the
did, and I would just say that it speaks to your skill as a person who works as a trainer, that you open that space so a guy feels comfortable talking about it. I think that's so important. Um, but I would often feel that the guys who are writing into we had a column called Ask Men's Health, and I had this feeling that the guys who were writing in there were asking us instead of a loved one because they thought, "Can just send this off via email. I'm going to preserve my anonymity. I can get my answer back, figure out what's going on without expressing that vulnerability to anyone in my circle and making them nervous." And it's not just that guys are terrified; it's also, and they are, but it's also that they feel that often that their role in society is to project strength and to be strong for those around them. And I give guys total credit for that. But one of the ways you remain strong for everybody who's around you is by being honest about what you're going through. And I feel like that honesty with yourself and with the people around you is going to be the first step you have toward healing, toward solving a problem, toward taking the initiative, toward getting the encouragement you need to move forward with your life rather than being stuck with one symptom or one condition that could end it all for you if you don't manage it in the right way.
most certainly. It's definitely an interesting, like two guys talking about guys' feelings about their bodies, right? It's an interesting thing. What drew me to you when we were kind of in pre-production about all this is just this very unique topic of, to me, men talking about their body. And as a male trainer for 24 years, I'm 46, going to be 47. I certainly notice feeling different. Certainly my recovery is very different than what it used to be.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that happened in my career. So eventually I was laid off from Men's Health. That's what happens. You get to the top and they think, oh, that'll be a good salary to cut when it gets to be
Right.
budget time. So I was done at Men's Health. But the first job that I took after that I was working with Sean T on a book that he did. Obviously, a well renowned trainer. The Insanity was his mega hit. But the thing that I found so cool about Sean and getting to know him while we're working on, he wrote a book called T is for Transformation, which kind of, it was a memoir telling his story, but also, recounting how he made his way in the fitness world. Guy had a tremendously difficult upbringing. But what he needed to do was to come to terms with that upbringing and then put it into his life in a way that he could feel positive about it, feel positive about the direction he was going in. And the reason why I brought this up was that, when we were working on the book together, I attended a lot of Sean T events. And they had elements of group therapy, religious revival, um, mass motivation moments, and I know for a fact because I watched it happen was that Sean was so present emotionally with everyone that everybody could find their. I mean, he's obviously an amazingly fit guy, but everyone, whatever their body type, whatever their needs, could find motivation in their own personal story, in Sean's story, in the overwhelming emotion that was coming up in these, weekend long workout get-togethers and seminars that Sean was able to combine the emotional, the psychological, the physical together and start people on the road to getting those three things in sync. And naturally, you go to a Sean T event and it's, you know, 1,000 women and two guys. And I was one of those out there sweating along with Sean. So it's not like guys are necessarily comfortable with that,
Yeah.
but I feel like if they can get more comfortable with it, if they can, look into their hearts and acknowledge the feelings that they're having and the difficulties that they're having, again, that personal permission to acknowledge it and to work on it and to have people see you working on it, can be, an important first step on the road past addiction, toward that, belly fat that you don't like, toward those aches and pains, those health problems you're having, mental problems, all of those things. The first step you take is to acknowledge them to yourself and then also bring in your circle and say, I'm working on this. I need help. Uh, watch me go.
So you think like I'm thinking about your time, maybe that the beginning of your time at Men's Health and the end. What was the biggest change you saw in men and their commentary between the beginning and the end?
It's so funny that when I went to Men's Health, it was a relatively small magazine. When I left it, it had 2 million subscribers and 40 editions around the world. And I do believe that we at Men's Health were part of fomenting a movement of men to, maybe to reject that Ernest Hemingway, John Wayne, macho guy um, image that maybe our fathers were living by and their fathers, and to um, moving on to a model of manhood that is much healthier because it isn't all about denying your weakness. It's about acknowledging what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, um, working on those weaknesses even as you accept them. So I do feel like, you know, Men's Health, when I started working there, people were saying, that's fine, but men don't care about their health. So this magazine is going to fail, to being the premier men's magazine in America, bigger than GQ and Esquire and Men's Fitness combined, because we did the best job that anyone was doing at that time is acknowledging what men are going through and giving them the tools to overcome that body chaos we were talking about earlier. So I feel like it was a generational movement of men realizing their father's generation had a problem. I'm not going to have that same problem. I'm going to work on it. And oh, by the way, this magazine subscription is going to help me. So that I was at a great ride there for 20 years while I was working at Men's Health, both in the way that it improved my life and the way I feel it was improving the lives of men all across the United States and all around the world.
Do you see that kind of mission continuing as since you've left there, that you see progress in that area to continue?
And that macho thing is still going on. It's very hard. Um, Stereotype to leap behind, in part because it gives a guy, a very specific role, and he kind of knows how to handle that role because he's seen so many bad examples of guys doing it exactly that way. So I'm not saying this is over in any stretch, but I will say that my two sons, who are in their early 30s, are much more aware of themselves emotionally and physically than I certainly was at their age before I began working at mental health. So I feel like this movement is out there, and there are guys who are listening, to their better angels as far as, rejecting some of the unhealthy ways of masculinity in the past, and embracing, the new, more healthful, more active, more motivated, more accepting ways of masculinity. But we're all still fighting that fight in part because testosterone is coursing through our veins, and we want to be the biggest, baddest animal in the jungle. And on some level, I want to still too.
Yeah. I definitely I think for me, it's definitely been a lifelong process of that, but I think about myself growing up and being in this business for a long time. I've never identified myself as that macho type of guy. I've never been like that. But also, I started really young in my life learning and I got my doctorate in behavior modification, and I learned a lot about just human psyche and behavior, and I gave myself permission to be different. And so I never really caught on to that machismo version of a guy. I actually think it's helped me as a trainer because I think a lot of the people I work with are attracted to that about me. And they're not attracted to, I'm not saying anything against this, but kind of your stereotypical bodybuilding type trainer guy who is very much about that image in that sense. But we're also learning that a lot of that actually may be as they call, like, bigorexia is out there now. Like, I saw a documentary about it was interesting about, like, men suffer in the same way that stereotypically women have suffered with anorexia, that men suffer from it in bodybuilding in a very similar way for that, and then it also embodies this very macho aspect for that. So, that's also been interesting to see in our business is both those things are extreme, and I think men sometimes struggle to this loss of identity if they soften things on some level. However, there's a better way to say that. Just like be in touch with your feelings, you know?
Well, that whole bigorexia thing, you know, it can be enormous, and it can be completely useless to you in life.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, which is why the functional fitness thing swept through when I was at Men's Health. And it was very germane to my life because I don't just sit here and edit and write and cartoon all day long. I'm also, I mean, I live in Colorado, which, has one of the very best, biggest, backyards for, men's playtime that any place ever has. So, I'm a cyclist. I'm a backpacker. I'm a hiker. I'm a skier. I'm a cross country skier. I'm a snowshoer. I mean, if you can do it in Colorado, I love to do it. And, so much of what I'm about in my fitness routine now doesn't have to do with being big. It has to do with um, good body maintenance, has to do with flexibility, has to do with functional strength, has to do with body confidence. So, like, even after having left Men's Health 5 years ago, um, I'm still going to the gym uh, 3 times a week at least for a workout. I'm getting in my long bike rides, but I also do yoga 3 or 4 times a week. So, yeah, it may sound like I'm exercising a lot, but I am. I mean, it's in my blood after my life at Men's Health. But the reason why I do it is that I want to be as active and fit and having as much fun as possible as late in life as I possibly can. So, not to bring anything down on myself, but I would just assume it's, after like ripping it down my favorite ski run at Copper Mountain in Colorado, you know, I will do a skid stop to get back on the lift, and that's when I'll die. And what I want to do is to be right in the middle of it, loving every minute of my life because I have the body that's going to allow me to do that, and the mind and the emotional life that sweeps aside the obstacles so that I can really concentrate on what's wonderful about being alive. And it's like it's a little spooky to mention that a scenario I just brought up because my dad literally died at age 73 while he was on a run. So
Wow.
I'm aware of, there's risks there. Um, my body is going to give out. But what I so admire about my dad was that he got the fitness bug when he was in his 40s, back when nobody was doing that stuff. But my dad was out there jogging around the block and the neighbors thought he was nuts. But what it did was it provided him with the 30 years at the end of his life. He was living to the maximum that he could. And then out he went on a run. It makes me feel so sad to think of him out there, lowering himself down onto the running track and dying at that moment. On the other hand, what an example he set for me to remain active and vital right up to the last minute. And I wish that for everybody who's listening to this now.
100%. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, Peter, because I have a client who I've had for now almost 18 years, and he always he tells me this intermittently. He goes, actually, Darian, for me, he goes, a good death for me would be to die during one of our sessions. He said, I'm not joking. He said, I don't want to be in a hospital. I don't want to be withering away. He said, it would be great to just be a high performing person like I am now with this and just it all be over during doing something I love, which is our sessions, exercising, that max. Even though it feels kind of sad, like what you're saying, it's actually kind of good too, on some level. It was like, you went out of the way doing something you loved, right? I mean, it wasn't like you were just staring at a wall going, "Man," just slow that morbidity window, that compression of it is really important. Like, can we just go up, 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 or get there and then down versus this really slow, painful thing that is pretty general for the public, which is those last 20 years are usually pretty painful for a lot of people.
Yeah, and so I'm not a big one about you know, not at all about body shaming. Um, but the reason to lose weight isn't because, people are making fun of you because you're a fatty. The reason to lose weight is to take the stress off of your joints, your body, so that it can remain as active and vital as possible. And that's feels to me like the motivation should be, I want to exercise so that I can feel great, not I want to exercise so that I won't feel bad about myself. So it's like putting that positive goal out there, and I'm going to be able to live better. I'm going to be able to keep on pushing it, right up to 15 minutes before I, shuffle off the coil. That's a life worth living.
Yeah.
And if you're burdening yourself with physical problems, and weight can be one of them, but also, chronic disease, um, not maintaining a healthy mind, all of those things are going to limit the amount of fun you're going to have in life. And I am all about fun, and the path to fun leads through the gym for me.
Yeah, most definitely. I want to talk about body confidence. You mentioned that, and this is something I've really been thinking about quite a bit lately. Is exercise for body confidence. Can you talk a little bit about how that has changed for you over time, and maybe some of the readers over time with Men's Health?
Yeah. So I mentioned I had that moment where, you know, I was gaining weight right along with my well-fed son at my wife's breast. And I realized right at that moment that I was at an inflection point, and that I had seen it happen to a lot of other guys who were young dads that their jobs were so busy. They were busy being dads and supporting the family and all the stuff that goes into, being in a marriage and being in a family life, that you can get to a point where you're just ignoring some of the self-care that you need to do. You're not making time for it. So, you know, even though, you know, I was very busy as an editor at Playboy, I was even more busy at Men's Health because, I was at the top of the masthead there. So, it felt like every day was, an avalanche of headaches. But what I was able to do was to um book my workouts as I would any business meeting. So people knew that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Peter would, in fact, be gone for 2 hours because those are the 2 days that the men's health basketball game was going on at lunch. And they would know that on the other days, I was likely to be in the gym from 12:30 until 1:30, back at my desk at 2, because we're a fitness magazine and I need to live what we're writing about. But also, just as a way for me to be healthy and live my life, I needed to make sure that that aspect of what I was doing was taken care of. So I booked it and scheduled it and stuck to my schedule. Um, and I feel like that's so much of what can go on in a life that you can um, you're just looking around, you're seeing all of the responsibilities you have. It weighs on you a lot. You get to the point where you're paying attention to all of your woes and your responsibilities to the point where you become inefficient at what you're doing. And that you are not only are you not taking care of yourself, you're not doing as good a job at your actual work be, because you're not in your peak mental and physical health. So I feel like, you know, you need to get rid of that dichotomy in life. You have your goals and your responsibilities, but you have to have obey the goals and responsibilities to yourself at the same time you are to your family, to your relationships, to your job. So all of those things are of a piece. They all feed into each other. They all help each other. If you can unite them and just have one set of goals moving forward for yourself, that's going to be the best way to live.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, especially too, because I was just having a conversation about this, and I was telling actually one of my clients that this wonderful lady I've worked with forever, it's like you never compromise your health and wellness for anything. I noticed that. I mean, she's maybe canceled maybe like 8 times in 13 years. Seriously, it's incredible. She trains 4 days a week. She's a machine, and she's like, it's a non-negotiable for me. She's a clinical psychologist, and she's like, listen, no matter what work I have, this is part of my work. Taking care of myself, showing up to these sessions, feeding my mind and my body during these sessions. It's her alone time for her too, in a way with me. And so it's not something that she's willing to give up. Whereas a lot of work and a lot of the trainers who are listening to this and stuff, they know this, that a lot of clients often compromise their own well-being for their work or their other responsibilities, and not realizing that when you're actively taking care of yourself, that self-care, it breeds confidence in those other things as well, and it breeds a feeling of competence at the same time, that these should be looked at similarly, not like I have to shed one of these things to pay attention to that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the one who made up the saying "healthy body, healthy mind," but it's exactly what you're talking about. I mean, that "mens sana in corpore sano." I guess that was a Greek statement, so it's been around for 3,000 years at least. Um, that, you know, uh, obeying what your body needs is going to help you with what your mind and your emotions need. And, all of these things work together and they should work together because if they're not working together, they're going to break down all together as well. So I'm all about it with your client who's only canceled 8 times in 13 years. We need to not quit on ourselves, not cancel the session. And also, go to where the joy is. There are certain kinds of exercise that I can't stand. Some kinds that I love. I target my workouts toward that, and I always have in mind, like for instance, this time of year, it's about to the ski season is just beginning here in Colorado. So usually in August, that's when I swap over my workouts to include some abs and back exercises and leg exercises, some agility drills that I know are going to help me. Also flexibility that I know are going to help me out on the ski slope. And I just went skiing last Wednesday, and it wasn't that much of a break from last season to this because I was preparing for it. Well, your listeners, who knows, maybe they're skiers, maybe they're not. But what are you looking forward to preparing for in your life? What are those goals that you have coming up that are going to make having a fit body and a healthy mind. Um, those would be the requirements that you need in order to do those things. If you can look ahead to the goals, the things that you most want to enjoy in life, and then plot the path that will get you there. Your health and fitness are going to be a big part of that path, getting to you to that goal of, I want to be a granddad one day, or I want to do a rim to rim hike in the Grand Canyon. Whatever that exciting goal that you have out there, fix it in your mind, walk it back, hire a trainer, get these skills and the abilities that you need that will deliver you to that place you want to be. And don't let anything else get in the way. I'm not saying, you need to be a bad dad or mean to your wife in order to get that stuff done. The fact is, if we plan well, we can incorporate it all and still get to the destination. So that's, what I would urge your listeners is make that plan, decide where the joy is in your life, and make sure that you have the body you need to experience that.
I love that, right? Make sure you have the body you need to experience that. This is Peter Moore, former editor of Men's Health and also fellow Coloradan, because I'm in Colorado too. As well. I
All right.
don't think you knew that. You were talking about it. I was like, I don't think he knows that I live there too. At the same,
Hey, we're neighbors. Good to meet
we're
you.
neighbors, unexpected neighbors, right? And I'm like, yeah, Colorado's definitely all of those things he's been saying. I have only lived here for like a year and a half now, but it definitely drew me in. Honestly, the outdoor adventure and the more fitness mindset was an important aspect to me. I'm very much drawn to zip code health too. I think that's a really important deal.
Yeah. So my wife and I, when I got thrown out of Men's Health, my wife and I were considering, well, we don't have to live in Pennsylvania anymore. Our kids are grown and gone. Where do we want to go? And one of the places we visited was Boulder, Colorado. And I was walking around the street and I was looking at the men who were 10 or 15 years older than I am. And they were cool. They were fit. They looked like they just got back from the rock climbing gym. And I thought, that's the kind of old guy I want to be. So, and then, a year and a half, we moved here. And,
Yeah.
I'm becoming that old cool guy who's on the ski lift on a Tuesday
Yeah.
and is climbing 14ers and is,
Love it.
living Colorado life to the max because I have the body to do it. And because I have the attitude. And I'm not saying I'm not the world's best skier. I'm not the fittest guy you see in the gym. I'm not the best body, but I have a body that works for the things that I want to do. And I think that, that list you know, of the things I love and the skills and body and health I'll need to do them, they intertwine and I make sure that they stay together. And I hope they will for as long as possible.
I love that. That's a good question, right? What kind of old guy do you want to be? Right. And I vibe with that because I ran a club for 10 years in Las Vegas and we had a lot of older guys who were amazing. Like they're in their 60s. I mean, they just look like statues and they were just amazing and like they were defying time. And I said, that's the old guy I want to be right
Hey,
there.
you think about it. I entered, when we were talking in the beginning, I was talking about, all this stuff that you're capable of when you're 17, 18, 19, 20. Um, your physical peak, but like there are definitely screws loose up there when you're that age. There's so much you don't understand. Um, you don't know what's important in life. You haven't had any experience. How sweet is it if you can, you know, get to your 60s and 70s with a body that's every bit as good as the one that maybe better than the one that you had when you were 22. But then you also have the mind and the emotional stability to go along with that. It's one of the ways to argue that, your 60s and 70s should be the very best time in your life if you can maintain your body at a level that's going to support you and the things you finally have time to do when you're at that phase of your life. So, it's another motivator. I'm not
Yep.
being negative, it's a motivator to be a super cool old guy at what you're doing when you're 73. That is an amazing ability.
That is amazing ability. It's actually an interesting segue to an episode I have coming up with this lady, Janet McConnell, who is in her 60s. And her whole thing is reframing aging as a time of acceleration, not fading. Like this is a time to grow and accelerate. And you think about it, right? That's kind of the superpower. If you can have the body that you would like, be the old guy that you want, and have the wisdom that you never had back then, you are actually the very best version of yourself at that point. More than likely, you think it's back when you're 20. No, no, you're pretty stupid then. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, you might have less hair, but you can have more
that's
fun.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
okay.
if you have all the hair, you might be like the best thing ever. I'm like,
You're gonna be a hot number in the assisted living place when you move
right,
into
right.
that time. Yeah, so they'll be after you.
That's right. Peter, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Just the journey we went on to get to this point, really cool. Just just our emails back and forth and stuff. I like that about this whole process, getting to know guests and now what a nice coincidence that we're both in Colorado. That's pretty cool,
Yeah,
actually.
I'll probably run into you on the slope sometime.
Yeah, man. I'm in northern Colorado, so man, I'm up Fort Collins area ish. So
I live in Fort Collins. I'm sitting in a barn in
come
downtown
on,
Fort Collins.
man.
Well,
Seriously?
it's the truth. That's
Now
where I
wait a
live.
minute. We didn't okay, everyone, we didn't know this. We literally didn't know this. Yeah, I'm in Windsor, so it's like, 15, 20 minutes away. We have to get together sometime,
Yeah,
man.
that'd be cool. We'll have
I
a
would
coffee and
yeah.
you can give me some tips.
Yeah, sure, whatever. I just love talking to people. That's really cool, man. What a, interesting thing, right? Thank you so much for giving me your time, your energy, your effort, and your perspective. If you would like to share anything for the audience or ways people can learn more about you, like go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, a few years ago, a friend of mine encouraged me to go on Substack. You may have a Substack too. It's petermoore.substack.com. And I mentioned earlier that I now work as a writer and cartoonist after my men's health days ended. And they can see all of my work there. Plus, a lot of it has a lot of what I write. You know, the idea is to make it funny, to put good cartoons with it, and to give us all something we can learn from all of my posts. So again, it's petermoore.substack.com, and go check it out. And maybe I'll give you a laugh and something to think about at the same time.
Peter Moore, everyone. Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate it.
You bet.